Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're continuing the Ayin. As we mention every week, we're learning Luli and Ishmas, the Ayin, Rabbi Ram Doiv ben Reb David, Schusa Yodon Aleinu, that the learning should be in a schus for his neshama, and that he should be a Melitz Yosher for us. This week is Parshat Bahar Bechukotai. We're going to begin with the first piece that discusses the commandment that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu regarding the mitzvah Shmita. The pasuk says a very interesting order. It first says that on the seventh year is a Shabbat Hashem, the Rishav Sahaaretz, the earth should be rested. 6 years before that, you should work. The Basayan says the order should be the opposite, right? What comes first? The 6 years you should work. That's the first part of the Shmita cycle. Then the seventh year you should rest. Like by Shabbos. What does it say by Shabbos? Sheishes Yomim Tavoid. 6 days of the week you should work. V'yom Hashvi Shabbos. So you see that by Shabbos you first said what comes in the beginning, the 6 days, then Shabbos. How come over here it's the opposite? Now, right now we're not going to learn the first piece. The first piece discusses the fundamental yesod of Shmita, which is Bitachon. Bitachon that Hashem will provide for us in the 6th year enough, not only for the 6th year, but for the 7th and for a large part of the 8th year, while we wait for the plants that we can now sow and plant that will come out and provide for us fruits. We're going to focus on the second piece, which discusses an amazing topic. This is a question that I'm sure everybody in one way or another asked themselves. Why did Hashem require human beings, and to some degree animals, the need to have food? The need to sustain themselves with food and drinks. Look, right? Humans cannot survive without water. Humans cannot survive without food. Why? Why did Hashem do that? So much so that if we don't have food and water or drinks, we can't serve Hashem. And moreover, a large part of mitzvahs, especially in Eretz Yisrael, is totally on food. Right? We were an agricultural society. There's so many halachas regarding planting and agriculture. Right? You have the whole Seder of Zroim, and you have Kachim, Kohanim, in order for them, in many cases, to perform and to effectuate a kapara for the individual, they have to eat their carbon. You have the lachmi toida, you have the lechem aponim, you have different things that they have to eat. Says the Basayan, why did Hashem do that? Now, there's obviously many different answers. There's many deep Kabbalistic secrets. We're going to touch on some of them. We'll explain to them to the best of our ability. But the fundamental question is, why did Hashem do it for? It says, now. This will now answer the question that we started. Why did the pasuk first say V'shav Sa'aretz, the land should rest in the 7th year? Then it says 6 years they should not work. They should work. Gam yesh ledoktok b'pasuk. The Basayan asks a bomb question. What if Klal Yisrael says Manoichel b'shana hashvius? What will we eat in the 7th year? If we don't plant in the 6th year for the 7th year, right? The Isser in the 6th year already begins with the idea that if I'm preparing the land in the 6th year for the 7th year, that's already usher. And if Klal Yisrael asks, what will you eat? Tell them, Tzivisi berchasi. They'll have my bracha. The Chayr says, where else in the Torah do you see such a language? If they ask you this, then do this. Doesn't make sense. So to answer both these questions, why the pasuk first started off with the 7th year, then discussed the first 6 years, and why did the pasuk talk in a question manner, in a manner of that if Klal Yisrael asks, what will we eat? This is what you should answer. We have to understand the idea that when Hashem created the world and created man, they do not have the ability to exist only if they eat and drink. I don't understand, says the Basayan. Why do we need physical things? Now you can ask me, what about ear? So ear really doesn't take up any of our time. It's a natural thing. And obviously we have to appreciate that we can breathe. There are many people, unfortunately, have a very difficult time breathing. They have to go on oxygen machines. They have to take different things. It's not so simple. But it's not something that requires work and effort and preparation and eating and then going to the restroom. There's a whole process, right? A part of our day revolves around, the 3 meals that we have. Not just the eating, the preparing, the going out to shopping for it. In the olden days, you even had to, it was much longer because you had to make it. Right? Today, we can go to the store, we can buy food, and in 20 minutes, we can have something to eat. 100, 200 years ago, it was a whole 2-3 hours to prepare even just basic foods. There wasn't always bread available. Sometimes you had to make it from scratch. And the Basayan says, it makes no sense. It seems to be that it takes up a lot of our time. Not only that, through the eating of food incorrectly, we can be over a lot of averes. We forget to make a bracha rishona, we forget to make a bracha achrona, we can mix milk and meat together by mistake, we can do other things. If there's truma, if there's kilayim, there's so many potential problems that can come from it. What do you need it for? Not only that, we have to take breaks in our day in order to eat, in order to prepare food for us, right? In order to work, to support our families. Otherwise, why does Hashem need to do that, right? However Hashem should have created the world, none of this should be necessary. We could sit and learn all day. We won't have to go to the bathroom. We don't have to eat, right? We don't have to sleep. Okay, sleep is a different Indian. Our Neshama goes up to Shemaim, where they teach us Soidus HaTorah. So let's leave that aside for now. But Lamaisa, if you think about it, all these material things that the body must have actually diminishes our ability to sit and learn. So it seems to be, says the Basayan, I don't understand why we need it for. As the Basayan always does, he teaches everything us how to serve Hashem. Every piece kemat that we've learned and we've seen, the Basayan always ties it around what is the avodah of a yid in this specific pasuk, in this specific idea. Right? The main idea when Hashem created the need and the purpose for us to have to eat, even though we explained there's other reasons, was ultimately for one purpose, to be connected to the land of Eretz Yisrael. Machmas shahapeiros Eretz Yisrael yeshlam kedusha kol kach. The fruits of Eretz Yisrael have so much kedusha. Kesha adam oichel mipeiros Eretz Yisrael. When a person eats from the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, Shem Shivas Aminim, which are the Shivas Aminim, the Torah specifically talks about the Shivas Aminim. Ubefrat, if we know that everything, right, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is stakabah rice and bara alma, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the Torah it says the concept of Shivas Aminim. So so that was needed to be created, and it's for us to eat. And from the Shivas Aminim, right, we actually awaken the Zayin Midas Alyonos, the 7 upper Midos. Now, without getting too complicated, there are 10 Spheros, right? The 7 upper Spheros are very hard to awaken. The best way to awaken, right, is through the Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. And the purest form to do that is through eating the fruits of Eretz Yisrael. Hashem, in the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, planted and infused it with tremendous Kedusha. And therefore, the only way to access that Kedusha is by eating the fruits. And without a physical body and the physical desire to eat, we wouldn't be able to access those fruits, as we're going to see. The niksha v'nitbak lebechinas kedusha ilah. By eating fruits from Eretz Yisrael, we connect to this upper kedusha. Ubal lechinas va'atem advekem b'Hashem elokechem chayim. Through that, we have the ultimate connection, right? The ultimate purpose of Klal Yisrael was to go to Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because in Eretz Yisrael is the ability for us to get the highest level kedusha, and the way to do it is through eating the fruits, the shiva minim of Eretz Yisrael. And in truth, says the Basayan, that this concept of eating the fruits of Eretz Yisrael has to be so much of our daily wanting. When we want to return to Eretz Yisrael, we obviously want to go back to Eretz Yisrael to see the Beis HaMikdash, but also we have to understand that part of it is the ability to eat and to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why there's a whole Seder of Zroim, of planting, because planting produces fruits. We have to produce the fruits that help us connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the highest way. And this is the main avodah and the main idea that Hashem created the food. Yes, there's a mitzvah to make a bracha before, there's a mitzvah d'oraisa to say Birchas Hamazon. But that's all for us to have the accessibility to Kiddusha Ilah. that can only be done through eating. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world created Kedusha. Without ingesting it, how do we access the Kedusha? Walking around just doesn't give us enough Kedusha. We're very hard to connect to that. So when we eat the Kedusha in the Eretz Yisrael, there's nitzotzes, there's sparks of Kedusha in every food that we eat. And when we internalize it, that helps us serve Hashem. The Basayin explains now, we can understand the Pasuk when it says, when Klal Yisrael will ask, what will we eat in the 7th year? If we don't have food in the 7th year, Klal Yisrael is not worried that we won't have food because they want food, they want taivas. On the contrary, if the whole ikr to come to Eretz Yisrael and the whole ikr achila is to connect to these 7 minim, to be ma'or the 7 midas, well, if we don't have fruits in the 7th year, then we can't do our avodah. The loyah mi peres Eretz Yisrael, we won't have anything in the 7th year to eat. So how will we be ma'or the shiva midas elyonis hakedoshim? And therefore, it's not a question like, how could I survive? Well, you're not going to give me any food in the 7th year. No. We understand that on the one hand, there's a mitzvah of Shmita. But at the end of the day, Klal Yisrael is asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the bottom line is, we want to serve you, Hashem. And the Iker Avodah, especially in Eretz Yisrael, is through eating the Shivas Minim. But if we don't have the Shivas Haminim, and the animals, remember, the animals are karbonos, right? The animals eat from the food of Eretz Yisrael. The animals also have a higher level of Kedusha. And also they're shechted on the Mizbeach, and in many cases they're eaten by the Kohanim. So if we don't have that ability, how could we properly serve Hashem? And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, don't worry, the Torah says it's tzivisi is berchasi lachem b'shana shishus. I will make the bracha so much in the 6th year, you will have enough fruits and enough shivas aminim in the 7th year and also in the 8th year. So don't worry about it. So what does it come out from what we discussed? Shebechinas achila zehu avdus hagadol is a great way to serve Hashem. There's a sefer, the name of the sefer slips my mind, but discusses the kavanas that a person should have when he eats. If a person understood truly the kavanas that he has when he eats, he could be ma'ayir tremendous yeshuas. We don't understand, we don't have that ability. We lost a lot of that knowledge. But we see from here clearly that when we eat the pears of Eretz Yisrael, we are able to ma'ayir a tremendous shefa and racham on ourselves. It says Basayin, but that's very good in Eretz Yisrael. What about outside of Eretz Yisrael? So outside of Eretz Yisrael, we have a tremendous ability. That is through achilas on Shabbos. The achila that we eat on Shabbos is like kedushas of Eretz Yisrael. And the mela, when a person eats on Shabbos lemitzvah, that will remind him of Eretz Yisrael, and that has the same effect. Everybody knows there's a mitzvah to have tanug on Shabbos. There's a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos. There's a mitzvah to buy special foods on Shabbos to be mechabed Shabbos. Those foods have the same ability, says the Vasayin, as the Shivas Haminim. The Ribnitzer Rebbe, everybody knows, Kemat Kol Yomov was betainas. We ate very little. The one exception was on Shabbos. His Hasidim wrote, and the famous Chassid, one of the famous Chassidim that he had was Rami Cohen. He would write that the Ribnitzer Rebbe would eat on Shabbos lo yuman k'liya super. He would eat everything. He said the food on Shabbos is kedusha shebekedusha, the holy of holies. There are other many tzaddikim that would eat the foods on Shabbos. Some of them would even save it. We today make it as a joke. We're eating the leftover food from Shabbos. But many tzaddikim specifically would eat food on Sunday that was eaten on Shabbos because it had the special kedusha of Shabbos. The Ribnitzer Rebbe would always say the food that he ate on Shabbos brought him up to higher levels. He suffered tremendously after that, but we understand from here the tremendous kedusha that the food has, that Shabbos food has, and this allows us to access the same kedusha that the Shivas Haminim have. There's two ways to serve Hashem. Right? One is, we all know, Torah, mitzvahs, masim tovim. Beis, there's another concept, and that is to elevate the gashmis, the kedusha that's trapped in the gashmis. Now, merumazim are hinted in the B'tevis Har Sinai. Sheteva Sinai, the word Sinai, is gematria based upon adnus. Aleph Daled Nun Yun. Shemeir al Kabbalos ol Machashemayim. V'zehu v'chisavoy al Aretz asher ani noisel lechem v'yachaltem miperis Aretz. The Torah says there's a need. Hashem in the Torah says we have to eat from the fruits of the world. So if Hashem looked at the Torah and created the world, so Hashem created this idea that we have to eat from the pears of the world. Without eating the pears of the world, we're missing in the Torah. And the reason is because in the Kedusha of the pears of Eretz Yisrael lies this tremendous Kedusha that has the ability to be ma'orer the Sheva Midos, to bring Shefa on Klal Yisrael. That, says the Basayin, can only be accessed by the Shivas Aminim, or by the Kedusha of Shabbos when we eat food on Shabbos, L'Kovet Shabbos, when we mechabit and we honor Shabbos. That as well has the tremendous ability to bring not only mitzvahs, not only rewards, but tremendous shefa ubracha, which should be zoiches, says the Basayin. Amen. Ken Yiratzayin. Have a wonderful day.